Good morning and welcome. Welcome once again to Presence of Light with Charlie Riverman Bergeron. It's a joy to be here with you again, and I apologize for not being present last week, but it was um, due to my not feeling well enough to actually get up and be here with you. So that's happens to all of us at some point in time. So, welcome today to each of you, and let's see if I can find you somewhere here. Um, Comments. Okay, we have a thing for comments. Good. And I want to just welcome you to what we call in the Christian world Good Friday. Many of us have always questioned, how can it be good? How can it, this thing of being crucified and being uh, in our teachings, we can understand the teachings, but in our hearts, we many times question um, spiritually, what is this really teaching us and what is this offering us? So I grew up in with a church, a Christian church, and Christian teachings. And I still belong to a church. I'm actually the junior warden of a church. And today, as I woke up and I asked my spirit guides what was I going to talk about, because this is considered a very holy day, and I don't want to waste my morning talking about something that isn't relevant to both the day and to each of us. And so the words that came through me as I was laying in bed was spiritual endurance. And I can't say that I've ever heard those two words used together before in my life. And so that's what today's talk about is spiritual endurance. So as I woke up, good morning, Wayne. Good morning, Angelica. So as I woke and I lay in bed for a while and was thinking about that, and I said, just played with the words. And then I get up and I write my show notes. And it was interesting to look at what I have been taught in my life, as we all have been taught by certain, teachers, whether they're Christian or any other religion. There's certain protocols and certain teachings that are really about spirituality, but not spoken in the terms of uh, our spirit, the spirit that we are. They're talked about in spirits of something else, some saint or a holy person or a savior or a leader. And what I realized was the spiritual endurance that my guides were pointing out to me was my own personal spiritual endurance. And that can mean a variety of things for many people who have a very diverse teaching of spirituality. The spirit is really who we are. We're spirit in form. And this is what I've been taught over the past 30 years, that we come from spirit. We come as a spirit and we're entered into the embryo as spirit. And it's that spirit that takes on this body, and we live in this human flesh as the spirit of who we truly are at another complete level, which we don't remember or don't understand. For those of you who have had near death experiences, you will be guided, many of you, to understand that. And it's not that everybody will remember the same thing, because we're uniquely a spirit. We are, each one of us, a unique spirit, which is part of the greater whole of that which we consider God or creator. And we are part of this whole universe, and we're part of planet Earth, and we're part of the everything. We're one tiny part. So spiritual endurance is not just the message that I receive, but it's also reminding me that as much as I practice spirituality in many different ways, and I honor all religions, that I just never thought about it. So today being Good Friday, which is, the day that the Christians celebrate, and that's hard word to say, celebrate or mourn the death of Jesus on the cross. And yet it's such a powerful symbol of sacrifice. And what it brought to me was, what did Jesus endure in his life? What was his expression of endurance meaning for all of us? Because he was sort of the epitome of the human, in the human body, spiritually enduring what was happening in his humanity. Each of us are going through some trials, some suffering right now. And when we look at the world, and this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened over and over and over again, even before Jesus. This has been a pattern of behavior that humanity has. And it brought to me, why can't we break free from this? Why can't we be and live as these beings of wonder, of gifted brilliance and energy that we truly are? Why is it that we always have to create this separation or this agitation? So today, let's take a look within ourselves, and let's dive deep into our hearts, because it's in the heart that all of this is stored. It's not held in the memory, in the brain. We've been told that the brain has all of wisdom and it's all held here. And when we suffer, we're suffering from the heart. And the heart is telling the brain that it's suffering. And the brain goes through this process of trying to analyze it and fix it and correct it, or it just loses its ability to control it, and we break down. You see, the brain isn't what we think it is. It's not who we truly are. The heart is who we truly are. This is the first organ that comes to life in our physical body. The brain is later. The heart tells the brain, come online. So we've been looking at life and who we are from a completely, entirely different perspective than biologically and entomologically, I don't know. Anyway, from a different perspective. And so it's no wonder that we are confused. The confusion is no longer needed. And this is what the message of what's happening in the world right now is. As we look out at the world and what's happening with Russia and Ukraine and these countries where people are starving to death and having diseases and all of this, what we're looking at is really what is no longer necessary. You may say, oh, how can that not be necessary? It's part of life. It's part of life because we have been told that life is a certain way. We've been told that unless we put somebody in power over us to guide us and direct us, we would just disappear and destroy ourselves. I look around at the destruction in the world, and all of the leadership for the centuries have not really proved that they are really capable of managing humanity or the earth. They are highly destructive. They are very greedy. They put themselves first and everyone else as a servant or a slave below them. Well, they make it look pretty. They make it look, oh, look at this. You can have this and you can have that. They throw breadcrumbs to the starving. They offer you a trip in a rocket ship to the... How many of you are going to do this? What benefit is that going to be for the whole of this planet? They're wonderful things, amazing. But they're not serving humanity, and they're not serving planet Earth. So here's the negative side and our human side. And this is about spiritual endurance, not physical endurance, because we can see that as physically enduring, we're not doing too great. We're surviving. Very narrow margin here. How do we rise out of this? When we look at the story of Jesus rising from the tomb, this is technically, in many ways, what we're about to do. And that's what the message came through. This is what humanity is going to go through. It's going to be a resurrection unlike anything that has ever happened before. I know people think I'm a little crazy when I talk like this, but I have to trust the messages that I receive. And I'm not making this up just because I want a story. I look at it as a window of hope, a window of light, a window of possibility that if we can break away from the destructive information that's fed to us and come back into our hearts and listen to what our heart wants rather than what our mind wants, things will slowly at first begin to change. And then an enthusiasm will grow, a collective enthusiasm, and it will expand and expand, and we will shift ourselves out of this darkness, the inside of that tomb. We will shift out of that darkness and be free. The stone will be rolled away. But unlike Jesus, who disappears, we will still be here. Because that was the intention. The original intention was for us to dwell here on planet Earth and to experience life in a physical form. Take a deep breath. As you know, I keep going. I don't stop, I don't stop what I'm saying because it enlivens me. It enlivens me to speak to you and tell you, these things that have come through to me this morning. I'm not a preacher. I'm not anybody other than who you are. The only difference is I have a different way of communicating than a lot of other people do. So let's come back into our heart and realize that all of us are enduring some sort of suffering. Okay? And that suffering is not so much about everybody else or how it got here, but the fact that we are carrying that with us in this moment. We may deny it, we may stuff it down, we may lock it behind thought patterns that are, better looking, but in our hearts, they're there. And when they're triggered, we're not consciously thinking what's triggered in our hearts, but the energy of that triggering manifests in what's happening in our moment right now. So when somebody makes you angry, you're not just angry about this moment, but it's deepening down into your heart and finding the anger in your heart that has been held there and not addressed. We think it's in our minds, but it's really connected to our hearts, because it's our hearts that are hurt. The mind records it, but it's our heart that is being damaged. It's our heart that's being attacked. Sounds preposterous. I know scientists and doctors will probably say you're crazy, Charlie. But I say this because that's what I feel. And our heart is the container of our deepest thoughts, our most loving intentions. And they're broadcast to the brain, and then broadcast from the brain to our mouth, to our hands, to our feet, and direct us. But we have to heal hard. It's where the pain and the suffering, as well as the love and the joy, begins its resonant expression. So we've been living in a world where control of our minds is essential. And in that process, we are lost in who are we? What is our purpose? What do we need to live and survive in communion with all other living beings? The trees, the water, the land, the sky, inner earth, the stars. We've forgotten that relationship. And we've been taught to be very selfish. Selfish in a way of wanting something, owning something, having something. Look, behind me, all of this stuff. All of this stuff doesn't make me any more than I can be without it. It's beautiful. It has energy. I work with it. But without my heart, without my will to serve my heart's purpose, I'm lost. This is what many of us didn't get in the teachings of Jesus. And the story has been told in ways that allowed, once again, people to control us and say, we're in charge, and you don't have the ability to know what to do, so you must do what we say. But we're saying it because we have the power of God that you don't have. I went to seminary school years ago. I wanted to give up my life and become a priest. And I went there and I sat in front of the teacher, and I didn't have a great education. I get GED, but I was willing to give up my life, give everything to be a minister or priest. And I looked at the person in the office and I said, what, sincerely from my heart, what can I do to prepare me to come into this and learn? And the person behind the desk, it's a perfect message for me because it changed my life. He said, well, it doesn't matter what you take. You can study auto mechanics. And I was at a point where I was thought that I would give up my life for God to be a minister or a priest or whatever. And the people that were going to train me how to do this didn't give a shit who I was or what I was. It was just this nonchalant, off the cuff statement. And thank you, angels, for that, because it made me stop and think, what am I doing? Here I am trying to honor something that I feel is holy and sacred within myself, and yet the people who are going to teach me don't care. How could I care under that kind of atmosphere? It's like, it changed my life. Let's put it that way. The message is that when we went to church or studied our religious teachings, we were children. And there were a lot of things that were really scary for all of us. It's not just me, and it's not just Christianity. It's in every teaching of every religion. There are scary parts for children. And those parts were held over our heads in order to get us to do something. They were used as a way, they say it was to teach us, but it was really for them to control us. And I'm not poo-pooing religion at all. It's beautiful. And the teachings are rich with wonderful messages for the heart. But right now, collective humanity is so much in their head that they don't even know where their heart is anymore. And so humanity is now suffering from a false faith in materialism. It's all about money. It's all about power. It's all about buildings. It's all about etc., etc., etc. It's a self-deceit that falsely appears as a solution to their emptiness. I want you to feel your emptiness. It's not pleasant. You're in a safe space. You're quiet. You're listening. Feel in your heart. You don't have to go deep, but just feel those things that you are feeling anguish about, suffering about. Self-worth is very low, or those moments in your life where people, harmed you physically, emotionally. This was the story of Jesus. This was the story of most saints. They endured that. There are religions that teach that they're about enduring the suffering and overcoming it. Yet they're more focused on the suffering than they are on the revelation, if you will, of who we truly are. And they still fall prey to that hierarchy of I'm the boss and you're the little child. So right now, in this time frame, we're being called home to our hearts. We're being called home to our hearts and asked to push ourselves forward. Not go within, but to open that, break open those hard shells, those walls in our heart that we've closed and closed and closed over the pain and suffering. Open them up and release all of that pain, all of that suffering, because it's driving us crazy. We can no longer let it continue to do that. Because in this craziness of the mind, we make mistakes every day. And I'm not saying they're bad, but we're taking their errors in our thinking and errors in our focusing on the future. And out of those errors, we are going to create another future that is very similar to the one we're in. And that has been the pattern over and over and over again. We never broke out of that thinking pattern and listened to our hearts. I can say, I love you. And I can mean, I love you to anyone. Doesn't mean I will like what you're doing or how you're living your life or what you're going through. But I can love you because you are here and you are a beautiful being of peace, light, and love. And that you were that before you came into this physical form. And you will be that when you return out of form. It's the essence of life. Yes, many things grow in the darkness, but a lot of them create their own light, don't they? You see, we're part of a whole that is much larger than the human mind can actually conceive. And it was part of the design of humanity so that it wouldn't be distorted. It wouldn't be misused. We're now being called to trust ourselves, to trust ourselves enough to remember that resurrection is possible for us without physical death. It is now the time, if you will, of revelation, revealing the truth within us. It's not out there. It's coming to know who we are in our hearts and trusting that love that so many times in our life has been crushed or stabbed or broken, however you want to look at it. That's the pain we carry. The roller coaster ride of our lives in this world today has brought us to a place of inner awakening that for many of us is very painful. But I want you to trust yourself. Don't trust me. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust anyone else. Trust yourself. And know that within you, there's this amazing being of light that cannot fail, no matter what you do. You will fail in terms of the third dimension. You will fail in ways of breaking rules and regulations. But you are a part of all creation. And when we start to seek where we offer the best and the most of who we are, for loving, for kindness, for compassion, we change the world. One small event at a time. How many of us are there on this planet? 800 billion or something? I don't know. Trillion? I don't know. Many, many, many. If all of us did one wonderful thing simultaneously, what would happen? Think about it. The power that we have if we change our thinking. And instead of thinking about what we need, what we want, what we have to have, now start thinking about, who am I? I am that I am. And I have always been that I am. Hidden in my heart, beneath all of this heaviness, all of this darkness. It's like the sky at night. It's very dark. Yet it's not really as dark as we think it is. There's light everywhere in that dark sky. Let's focus on that light within us. Let's bring that love within us out to share with each other. Let's change humanity once again back to a new blueprint. One that is manifested out of the original blueprint, but enhanced by our wisdom and ability to recognize when we're headed the wrong way. It's not easy. If it was easy, we would have done it a long time ago. But right now is the time. It's the shifting of the ages. Bless you all. Thank you all. I love you all. I don't try to preach. I really don't want to preach. I wanted to be a preacher a long time ago. But I want to share what my guides, my teachings, that I don't go looking for. Believe me, I don't, this just, it appears. And I have to listen, just like we all do. Not easy, but it is possible. And that's what you have to remember. So, each of you have this ability and capability. And it doesn't mean that, all of a sudden you're just going to flip over and it's going to be, magic. It is magic in many ways, but it only comes with you want to learn the magic. The magician doesn't become the magician just automatically. He has to want, or she has to want, to be that magician. Let's share the magic. That is held within our hearts, with each other. Bless you all. I love you. I thank you. I respect you. I am you. You are me. We are unity. One heart, one love. May your weekend be filled with moments of joy and brilliance. May your next week be the first steps on a path to your inner self that you've never experienced before. May the light along that path always push the darkness away so that you can truly see who you really are and begin to live your life once again in peace, light, and love. Aho, Matakwe Asan, Shambhala on, Mahatma on. Thank you all for being here. It's always a joy. I love to read the comments as I finish and know where your hearts are, and know that no matter what we do, we are now on a threshold of a very exciting point in the shifting of humanity to honor its true presence, not just in singularity and separation, but in unity and wholeness. May your week be filled with joy. May your holiday, if you celebrate it, whatever holiday you're celebrating this weekend, there are several, honor those teachings and honor that part in you that is that light of resurrection. Aho. See you next week, if not sooner.